Hey everybody, good afternoon. It's Mrs. Rose, and today we're cooking, which is something I love to do. We are making a Native American fry bread. I have notes because of course it's social studies and I have to teach you a little something. So this is a Navajo Native American dish that was created in the 1860s when Native Americans were forced out of Arizona and into New Mexico on what was called the Long Walk. It was a pretty sad time in their history. And when they got to New Mexico, the climate was different and they couldn't grow their traditional crops. So the American government sent them things like canned goods, flour, sugar, and lard, which is animal fat. So the dish has a really complicated history. Some Native Americans love it and say it's a reminder of the hard times we went through and it brings us all together. Sherman Alexie, who is a really famous author and filmmaker, calls it the food that represents the story of their survival. But it also represents a really hard time in Native American history, with people being taken from their homes and forced to live in like a set area that the government decided. It's really not too healthy of a dish, so you should not eat this for every meal. If you go to a reservation, they actually do sell this and you can buy it. And there's actually some restaurants that that's what they make. I have had it on a reservation and loved it. We're gonna spice it up today. It's kind of unsweet, but we're gonna add some sweet stuff to it. And if you want to, you can make along with me. Today we're using the recipe from spruceeats.com. You're gonna need 1 cup of flour, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 cup of milk, and vegetable oil or some other shortening. I don't use lard, but that is what that would have traditionally been made with. And you're gonna need quite a bit of it. So we're gonna go ahead and get started, and I can't wait to make this with you. Hopefully it's good. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is pour the oil. And this is where you should probably get an adult's help. You're gonna take the oil and fill it about 1 inch up into your pan. Okay, and it's gonna take a lot of oil, about 1 inch. That's probably good. Okay, so while you're mixing all these other ingredients, you're gonna have this heating up. You want it to be hot when you put the dough in there. So I'm gonna turn it on, about medium high, and let it heat up while we're mixing everything else. So the first thing that you're gonna do when making the dough is put in 1 cup of flour. Then you're gonna need to put in 1/4 teaspoon of salt. It's the littlest one. Okay. And it's not gonna make it salty, don't worry about that if you want it sweet. And then you're gonna put in 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Not baking soda, baking powder. So there's 1. And 1/2. Then you need to mix it all together. I'm gonna grab a whisk to do. So once it's all blended together, you're gonna add in 1/2 cup of milk. And this is where it's fun because you get to mix with your hands. So as you pour it in, you can start mixing with a whisk and then go ahead and make it with your hands. It should be like pretty firm. You don't want it like a cake batter. There we go. So this is where you get to mix it with your hands, and you can tell it gets pretty sticky. Just wipe it off and keep adding until all that flour is in there. At this point, you're gonna take your dough when it's formed a little ball like this, and you're gonna divide it into 4. So I'm gonna do 2 and 2. And then you're gonna roll it into a ball. They don't have to be perfect. I like a little bit of a homemade look. That one can share.
So once you've gotten your ball, you're gonna roll it out with a rolling pin, or if you have like a clean, anything that I guess was a roller. And you don't want to get it too flat, like that is probably good. So the way to tell if your oil is hot enough to fry, I just washed my hands from the flour, and if you put it in there and it sizzles a little bit, it pops, then it's hot enough. So this part, you're actually probably gonna need an adult's help. When you drop something into oil, you should not like drop it. You wanna gently place it. So I'm just gonna set it in there and let it fry for 1 to 2 minutes on each side. So it's gonna bubble and turn a little brown. And don't worry about the bubbles, it's gonna take it a minute or so on each side. So what's gonna happen is it's gonna puff up like this, and that is more than okay. When you go to turn it, you should use tongs, and then just turn it over. Once again, don't flop it. Oil can really burn you. So we're gonna give it another minute on that side. So when they're done, you're gonna be able to tell. They're gonna be like a golden brown color, and they're gonna have puffed up a little bit. You're just gonna take them out of the oil and be really careful. Once again, oil can like really burn you. And you're gonna set them on some paper towels to kind of catch up some of that grease. So we're gonna let them sit right there and turn the stove off. So after they've sat for a couple of minutes, you're gonna take whatever topping you want. You can eat these plain. I kind of want them sweet. I'm craving something sweet right now. So I'm gonna use this cinnamon and sugar combined and just put it on the top. And that'll make it a little bit sweet. It's not gonna be sweet by itself. You can use it for bread for a sandwich. You can use it for all sorts of things. So this is a really complicated dish with a complicated history, but I think it's people showing the best that they could do at the time, which is kind of like what we're doing now. I want you to make sure you're doing all of your work, but I want you to make sure that you're making the best of this time being stuck at home. Make something new, do something exciting, but like stay healthy and enjoy your time. Love you all.